Hello guys, Dejan here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to paint the old Panoceania starter pack for the military orders. I was inspired to paint this by the new military orders coming out in the next few weeks. I'm going to paint these ones actually in the Teutonic Knights paint scheme. So if you like this paint scheme, you can paint the new starter pack in the same way. So without further ado, sit back, relax, grab yourself some hot beverage and enjoy the video. To start, I primed all the models with the light ghost gray. If you don't have this color, any bright or very light gray will do the job, because there will be a lot of shades of gray and white on this model, as well as some light blue, so the gray undercoat is very good for this job. I ensured that the primer is applied equally all around so that I cannot see any metal under it, and I apply this in 3 very thin passes with my airbrush. If you don't have airbrush, any spray can will do the job here. I will start with the color Ivory. I will use this to paint like his helmet and all the white armor panels that these models have. I will use this for his tabard and for this padded leather armor that they have. Since we are painting over gray, this color have a pretty good coverage, so I applied this in 2 very thin coats, and I had pretty good coverage after that. Then I moved to a light sea blue, and this is the air color that I'm using, so I actually didn't need to add any water to it. I just put it on my wet palette and I use it as it is. I applied this in 2 very thin coats. So after I finished with applying first coat of this paint, I waited for this layer to completely dry, and then I went all over it again with the second layer so that I had a good blue tone on my model. I used this to paint all the blue armor panels and nothing else. I was just being really careful when I was going around the parts that I painted with the ivory before, but even on the places when I made mistakes, I just pick up the previous color and I just did little repairs. I just need to tell you that first I'm going to block all the colors on the models, and then I will do one thorough wash before proceeding to the highlights. Next thing that I'm going to do is to paint the weapons. For you guys that you follow me for a long time, you know that I always paint my weapons black, but this time I decided to try to paint it in some different colors to create some little diversity. So this time I will use mahogany brown, and I will just paint the middle case of the weapons, and then the rest of the weapons are going to paint with the black. I just wanted to create some kind of the bronze casing with this. But this will be a base color for now, and I will return later after shading to do some highlights on it. So as I said, I'm going to use black to paint the rest parts of the weapon, and while I still have this color, I'm going to paint all the under armors with it and the rest of the armor panels, like some parts of the helmets, and like these guys, they have their shirt black, and Magister Knight actually have his whole helmet black, so that's what I did actually on that model. Now I'm going to move on to paint the leather parts on these models, like the belts, holsters and those little pouches that they have. The fastest way I found out into actually doing this is to use the contrast paints. I'm going to use Gore-Grunta Fur, and I'm just going to paint this really carefully with the one thick coat of this paint. I'll just be very careful not to spill it anyway around, so just be focused on the areas that you're actually painting. Some of these models have grey tabards, like the Order Sergeants, while the Specialist Sergeant, he have his helmet grey as well. So for all of these details I'm going to use neutral grey. It's very easy to paint this color over the light grey, so only one thin coat was enough to have a good coverage, and I was really satisfied with it. Just to let you know, whenever I'm using my colors, I put them on my wet palette first. That's why they flow so good from my brush. And you can see that they're like pretty wet, so that I add usually like a drop of water to them, so that they go really smoothly. For the remaining armor panels that I left unpainted, I'm going to paint them with the pale blue. I decided to do this just to create a diversity between some armor panels, so that they don't look like just all blue or just blue mixed with the black, so they have to have a little contrast on them. So I painted this with the pale blue, which later when it's going to be highlighted, it will more turn into some grayish side, so actually it will be a really nice contrast between the remaining blue and black armor panels. For all the green linings that they have on their armor, I'm going to use the uniform green, and I will just outline them with the one very thin coat, so that later after the wash I will pay more attention to it and I will bring them more into the focus. Second contrast paint that we are going to use today is going to be a Flash Tearers Red. I will use this color to mark all the LEDs that are going to be red on these models. I'm doing this now at this stage because after the washing, when I start with the highlights, I will have a lot of opportunities to repair all the mistakes that I made now, because usually these LEDs are in the deepest parts of the models, so when you paint them after, there is a huge chance that you're going to touch some of the armor panels and create some little mistakes. So doing them at this stage will save you a lot of time later for repairing and doing some things all over again. So now as I'm finished with applying my base colors on the models, I'm going to wash it with the dark tone. Actually, I pick up one of my very large brushes because I'm going to wash the whole model with this. I mixed the dark tone with a little of quick shade wash medium, because the wash medium will actually improve its consistency, so it will flow very nicely, like it will go inside all the recesses and it won't pull that much. Only thing that you need to be careful is the pulling on the lower areas of the models. All the wash will go really fast from the top of the model towards the bottom, so it will tend to pull the lower areas of the model. So just dry up your brush and scoop up the excess of the wash, and don't allow it to pull that much. After the wash has been completely dried, in my case it took around like half an hour, I will start doing the highlights. So in this case, I'm going to start from the deepest parts of the model, which is actually the LEDs that are red. I'm going to use Evil Sun Scarlet, and I'm going very carefully to start highlighting them. Actually, I will cover like 90% of those LEDs, only leaving the recesses and the corners in the darker shade color. Try to be as much precise and careful as I can, not to mess up any of the other surfaces that are much higher than this, but in any case, when we're going to paint those areas, there will be a chance to do the repairs. To do the final highlight on these LEDs, I'm going to use orange fire, and I'm just going to put one little bright dot in the middle or in the upper area of these LEDs. Because of the dark wash, some areas that we painted with the ivory became too dark, so I'm going to go back to the ivory and I'm just going to enhance those areas and bring them back to their natural color. But in this case, I'm going to keep my shadows in the recesses dark, so I'm going to avoid those areas and I'm going to be focused more of the raised areas and more on the folds. When you're doing flat armor panels, you're going to repaint them totally, like 95%. Just leave the corners and the edges still in the shadows. Then after that, I'm going to use pure white, and this will be used to highlight multiple things on this model. Actually, I will start with all the cloth items, and I will highlight only the most raised areas of the folds and like the little edges. I will also use this color to highlight all the black parts. So like weapons, armor panels, gauntlets, everything. When you're going to highlight weapons, you're going to focus on edge highlights, so try to use mostly side of your brush to be able to pull really small sharp lines. I will show you quickly now how the models look like at this stage, so if you missed anything before, you can just see how I painted some parts and just copy the same paint job if you would like. After I'm done with that, I'm going to focus on the neutral gray parts. There is some models that I painted their tabard with the neutral grays, and the one model that I painted the helmet. So now I'm going to back to those models and try to bring those colors back to their original tone. I'm going to be focused mostly on the raised areas and try to leave all the recesses or all the shadows intact that I made with the wash. So just be careful when you're going on top of the folds. Then I'm going to mix a little of the white. This is up to you how bright you want this highlight to be. Just to let you know, when you mix this, it will look much brighter than it is actually after the color is dried. So just be careful and have that in your mind. I will focus on highlighting only the folds and the most raised areas. When I go to do the helmet, I'm going to do the edge highlights, and on this little cloak that he's wearing, I'm going just to use a little like corner highlights. One of the last most important highlights that we have to do here is to highlight their signature blue armor. So I'm going to get back to the light sea blue, and first I'm just going to repair and repaint all the things that get darker with the wash, because most of these panels are flat, so actually they don't have any like areas that should be in the shadows. So I'm going to repaint like 90% of these areas. I will only leave the areas that are like between two armors or the recesses still with a darker wash, and also areas that are really under. You don't need to paint them because you want them to remain a little darker. And to highlight the blue armor, I'm going to use sky blue, and this is going to be done mostly as an edge highlight. So I pick up one of my smallest brushes and I focused mostly on the sharp edges of this armor. So I went all around and I traced all the sharp edges. So this will actually tie everything together and make the final look of these models. Now I'm going to focus little on those weapons. I'm going to use orange brown, and I'm going to focus on highlighting the weapons. I'm going to mostly cover like 85 to 90% of the areas that are painted before with the mahogany brown, but I will try to keep all the shadows that are made with the wash, so I won't go too deep with this paint, so just lightly on the surfaces, just to start highlighting and create the bronze effect. And the final highlight on the weapons is going to be done with a mix of a sunny skin tone and the orange brown. So more or less it is like a 50-50 mix, and I'm going to focus on edge highlighting this weapon. So I'm going to trace all the sharp edges just with the tip of my brush or the side of my brush, depends on the angle how I can approach the model. Also, you can use pure sunny skin tone to highlight all the leather parts. So you can use like a stippling technique, just touch the edges of all these leather, like holsters, belts, and those little pouches on the side, just to create like a worn leather effect. One of the minor details that is left is to do all the green stitching on their padded leather armors. I'm going to use a Goblin green for this, and this will be just done as a little highlight, just to bring this color back, because it went darker with the wash, and when I was repainting all the other stuff, I touched it with all the colors that were around it, so it actually lost its shape, but I'm just going to enhance it now. On some models I left a few of the armor panels in the pale blue, just to create some diversity between them. So now I'm going just to go back and just repaint them in the pale blue, because they got a lot darker because of wash. This is actually really small details, but it will help creating some diversity and some contrast of the model. So just be focused on that and try not to paint the recesses that are created by the wash. Two of these guys are carrying big swords, so I decided to paint them in very simple method. I will paint them in one color and just highlight them, edge highlights with the white. You can choose these colors, it's up to your liking, and I'm not going to do any like special blending or something. I will leave that for some future projects. Especially for this model I decided to use a Scarlet Red, so I just painted the sword red in two very thin coats and then highlighted it with white. And the last and the final things that we are going to do on these models is to do their signature markings, their crosses on their tabards. So for this I'm just going to use pure black. I'm going to use one of my smallest brushes with the best tip, and I'm just going first I will just firstly sketch like these crosses, and then I will just go back and just enhance those lines and try to make them steady. Tip for this is to keep both of your elbows on the table so your hands don't shake when you are drawing the straight lines. And that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap this video here. I'm going to transfer them to some bases that I made before, like in a jungle theme. If you are interested how, I will include the link in the section down below. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and it will help you to decide your paint scheme for the new military orders that are coming out next month, that I'm really excited for. I hope you are as well, and if you are, like, which is your favorite model. And guys, if you find this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It will help me a lot. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the section down below and I will try to do my best to reply. This will be all for now, guys. Stay safe, take care, and see you in one of the next videos. Bye bye.